In this demonstration video, I'm going to show you 4 different tempera painting techniques. Now some of these, well probably all of these, you could do this with acrylic paint, but some of them you could not do with watercolors. Okay, and those are the 2 other main types of paint that you'll be using in my classroom. Now in one of my boxes I already have paint in here. The reason why there's paint in here already is so that by the time we get to it, it'll be dry. Okay? Because I'll explain when we get to it. Okay? So the very first technique that we're going to do together is called dry brush. What you will need is a dry paintbrush. Okay? And you'll also need your paints and a cup of water to clean your brushes out in, and that's probably about it. Okay, so I'm going to use this color right here. I have this kind of like navy blue color. Okay, and I'm just kind of getting the tip of my brush wet or filled with paint. Okay, and then I'm just going to paint in this square with that. Okay, and it's a little streaky. That's kind of what you want with dry brush. Okay, this is kind of good for texture. I think this technique is great for like hair or grass. Okay, and that's dry brush. The next technique that I'm going to show you is using a sponge. So you need to have a sponge in hand. And you're just going to dip this sponge in whatever color you want to use. So I'm going to just use the same color as before. I try not to overload my sponge where there isn't lots of goopy parts. And you're just going to paint with your sponge, and hopefully if you did it right, it will have an interesting texture. I think this technique is great for maybe like a sky, like an orange, to make a good orange peel. Okay, and that is a sponge. Okay, I like painting with sponges. The third technique is called double loading. Okay, now this one's going to be harder to do, so you'll need a flat brush that is probably wider than this one. Okay, let's see if I can even do it with this. Okay. So do not use a round brush like this. It'll be very difficult to do this with a round brush. Okay, so a flat brush. Okay. In this one you're going to use 2 different colors of paint. So I'm going to use my navy blue, and I'm going to just dip a corner of my bristles in that paint. Okay, and I kind of didn't do that very well, but we'll see how this works. Okay, in the other corner you're going to dip another color in. Okay, so now I got this navy blue on one side and I have white on the other. Okay, after you have that, you'll just paint with it, and hopefully it'll turn out right. Let's see if it does. Okay. So that kind of merged those 2 colors together. I'm going to try this with a different color. So I'm going to do 1/2 of it with the navy blue, and then the other half with this sort of red color. Oops, kind of went over my navy blue. Yeah, let's see what that looks like. This one might not work very well. Let's see. So you kind of got your purples mixed together. On this one, I would definitely use a big brush that's pretty wide, because it was difficult for me to even do it with this. Okay. On the last technique, it is called scratching. What you need to do first is lay down a layer of paint Doesn't matter what color. I would probably use something other than white and black. And you're going to paint it. After it's completely dry, and mine is not completely dry, but I think it'll work, you're going to paint another layer of paint on top of that. Okay? And it can be a different color. And I think it'll work better if you use a different color. So I've got red on bottom, this red purpley color, and I'm just going to put this light blue on top. Okay, so I'm going to paint light blue on top of this. Now this technique is called scratching, and you'll see in a minute what that means. Okay. After you have painted your second layer, and I don't think it has to be completely dry, we'll see if this works. You could take like a paper clip like this, and you can just scratch away like an image on top of that paint. So maybe I want to say the words hi. Okay, so basically you're picking up that top layer of paints and maybe a little bit of that bottom layer. I think why that's happening for me is because my paint is still kind of wet and my paper is fairly thin. So if you're doing this, you might not have that sort of white background showing. Okay, so I'm going to show this up close so you can kind of see what that looks like. Okay, so that's scratching right there. Okay, this one right here is double loading. You can kind of see it better with the top dry brush, and then lastly sponge. Okay, these are 4 different tempera painting techniques. I hope you are able to practice, everyone.